Good morning and welcome back to another Breakfast Club on Fantasy Football Scout ahead of Game Week 4. I am joined by Gianni this morning again. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, looking forward to busy 2 days of football. Nice to have all the fixtures on Saturday and Sunday, so we got sort of 24 hours to consume it all.
Yeah, I must admit, I know it's great to have all the football on and you'll be able to watch whatever games you want, but I do hate the fact it drags on and on. Like last week, Saturday, there's only 4 games. There's still another 2 days of football left. I got to be honest, I don't know what you feel like about international breaks, but I hate having a bad score in this week because you got to wait 2 whole weeks. Does that worry you at all?
Uh, I just hate having a bad score, and I've had a lot of them. So, to be honest, I've not thought of that one. I just want to get above average this week, which surely I'm going to with my setup. Must happen, surely.
Yeah, hopefully we'll come onto your team in a sec. It's just if I don't obviously no one likes having a bad week, but having to wait 2 weeks to put it right, you want to make those early transfers. There's some international teams are playing 3 times in this break. It's absolutely insane. You'd imagine that there's not going to be too many players that play 3 times, but we could see some sub appearances and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. So I see Scott in the chat. Shouldn't one of you at least be eating breakfast? The thing is, no one wants to hear someone eating breakfast, right? Ah, there we go. I've just got some water. There we go.
Yeah,
That's all I have.
I've literally just been munching through my cereal and finished. I'd say about 10 seconds before we came on. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So we have had breakfast this morning, but no one wants to hear us eat it. Anyway, I'll try and keep up. I'll try and keep up with the chat and answer some questions as we go. But yeah, we're going to go for our teams in a sec. But I think the first thing we're going to talk about is probably the big news. It's a good thing about doing a video on Saturday because you don't necessarily get all the news early in the week. And Mane is confirmed out, so he's tested positive for COVID-19. Now he is self-isolating. I'm not sure. I actually didn't read the article, so I don't know how long he's actually out for. Because of the international break, I'm assuming it's just one game week, as long as he recovers, and obviously, hopefully, he does. What was your first thoughts when you saw this news?
Yeah, I think it's 10 days he's got. So he could be back for game week 5. Should be, assuming he's match fit. Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you don't lock your team in on a Friday night and switch off completely to FPL. You know, we saw it 10:20 last night, I think it was. Liverpool tweeted. So, you know, that it's always worth a refresh come Saturday morning. You know, Mane's 9% owned. That will have, you know, yes, he's not a differential when he's not mass owned, but that will be affecting a huge amount of teams. So it's made me think, Andy, it's perhaps a sign of things to come, not scaremongering at all, but we can't be surprised if we see some of our players get COVID, and therefore the late transfers maybe are something that if we're doing early transfers like I often do to beat a price rise, perhaps we need to be thinking, forget the price rises, save your transfer till the Friday night, Saturday morning.
Yeah, I talk about my transfer in a bit, but I didn't do them on Saturday when the prices were going to change. But I still did them quite early. I did them on Wednesday night just in case there was any more price changes. And when I saw this, I thought that's absolutely crazy going forward. I just don't know how many. I don't usually tend to do it further into the season anyway because obviously price fluctuations aren't kind of as volatile. But it's definitely made me rethink. I know there's lots of talk about, this is a good reason to have a good bench, and absolutely right, having a good bench is good, but you just can't. There's nothing like Mane out is not as good as having a 4.5 million midfielder on your bench or a 4.5 million defender. Like someone said to me, "What if you've got Lamptey?" I think Lamptey's great, but for some people, Mane would have been their captain. So now they have to choose someone they maybe didn't want a captain, or they have to transfer him out to then maybe transfer him back in. So yes, having a good bench is a good idea. But I think this kind of thing, like I don't own Mane, but if I did, I'd be so frustrated. But it's just going to be one of those things we have to deal with this season, isn't it? It's just at this point, like I'm sure we're going to see people writing this FPL season off again, like last year. Like, what do you think about this? Like, if this was you in your position now, you own Mane. Let's say you do. I know you don't, but let's say if you did, what would you be doing with him?
Yeah, I'd probably look and go, okay, it's only 10 days. The international break comes at a good time. I probably wouldn't be taking a hit to get him out. If I had my transfer, I'd sell him. If I didn't have my transfer, I'd leave him in, knowing that come game week 5, he could be back and he could bang. My best mate actually is a bit of a casual. He's 5 minutes on a Friday type FPL manager, not in the Twitter community. He texted me this morning. He sold KDB for Mane. Proper casual move, that, selling KDB. But, he did that earlier in the week. And he'll be punished. But at some point throughout the season, we're probably all going to get punished with one of these. So, yeah, it's just food for thought, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, early transfers are always. I mean, it's the risk versus reward that you get from early transfers. It's just a bit different this year. It's just an extra thing to kind of take into consideration. I mean, players can obviously fall ill at any time, but this is like a whole different kind of ball game. Excuse the pun at the moment. So yeah, if I had him, I don't know. I think a lot of people probably do have a Man City player as well, so it's probably not the end of the world just to switch your captaincy over to Sterling or De Bruyne or whoever it might be. And to be fair, there are a lot of captain choices this week, right? Jimenez, if you really want to go for it, Ings as well, Jamie Vardy, Aubameyang. There's literally about 7 different teams you could captain a player from. Maybe it's not your ideal choice, but there are other options, and you could just bench him if you've got a good player on the bench. I think if I didn't have Salah, I feel like that's such an easy switch to make potentially if you've got a free transfer. Obviously, Mane has looked great in the last couple of games, but we know what Salah can do. I don't think anyone's writing Salah off just yet. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, 9% is quite a lot. I mean, we're nearly up 7 million. I think we've hit the 7 million registered managers now. So that's nearly 700,000 people own him. So it's not small by any stretch. So yeah, we'll have to see where it goes. Really important question I just saw in the chat from William. What was the cereal that you had?
Cereal was a mixture of cornflakes, honey nut clusters, and Special K.
Wow, that's a good
Yeah.
mix. Yeah, I used to mix up cornflakes and Rice Krispies quite a lot when I was a bit younger. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. Important questions. I see a lot of people. Martin says your mate deserves it. To be honest, I think that's because transferring De Bruyne out. No one in the chat is gonna like that move this week. I don't think
It's a proper casual move, isn't it? Like that is someone that plays the game 5 minutes on a Friday, and that is very obvious in his transfers. Like selling KDB is madness to me. But yeah.
I do sometimes envy people like that can play the game like that. They're like, I'm just thinking all week, where can I get the biggest gains? Like, where can I get this extra point? And sometimes I wish I could just log in on a Friday and make my transfer, but as we know, it's not gonna happen. A few people asking us to talk about Brewster, so we'll just talk about that because it was on the list to do anyway, and we'll come on to our teams in just a second. So he has now officially signed for Sheffield United. There was lots to talk about him going on loan or being signed pre-season, and then Sheffield United, that kind of rumour hasn't gone away for a little while. So we had a good idea it was going to happen. The no smoke without fire type situation doesn't mean they'll always go through, but it did feel like this one would, and it has. Whether or not he's going to be ready this week, we don't know. But they're playing Arsenal away, so it's probably not the biggest issue if he's not ready. And in Game Week 5, really good fixture, Fulham at home. So what do you make of this signing? What's your first thoughts about it?
Yeah, look, I think he'll get some goals. I would have been way more excited at a Brewster at an Aston Villa, a Brewster at a Crystal Palace, 2 clubs he was linked with, just teams that I think will be a little bit more threatening. I am slightly concerned by Sheffield United this season, even with Brewster, the amount of goals they'll get. But at the same time, look, a 4.5 million forward that is a starter isn't a bad buy. The fact that he'll be getting minutes is something, and you expect him to pop up with a few goals. What I would say in that Sheffield United squad, and yes, he's their record signing, and yes, he'll be given opportunities, but there's 5 or 6 strikers now at that club. And yes, Wilder plays a front 2, but the rotation there is high. Look at last season, we all jumped on Mousse, and then he was dropped, and then he was injured. At times, we've liked McBurney in phases. Sharp gets minutes, McGoldrick gets minutes. Ollie Burke is now a forward. The strength and depth there is high, and don't be surprised if Brewster is missing out, or when he does play, he'll get hooked at 60 a lot, I think. But, perhaps he'll become the main man and score loads of goals, and then we jump on him. But it's a wait and see for me. I'm not getting too excited.
Yeah, I don't think it's really... For me, it hasn't really changed much. The only thing it's maybe kind of changed a little bit is that 3-5-2, I'd maybe now be a little bit happy about going for it because there's a 4.5 million, we hope, playing forward, because I think they do have a lot of strikers. They don't have very many strikers that score a lot of goals. Whether or not that's their fault or whether or not it's, the service that they're getting. I mean, to be fair, how they didn't score against Leeds, and they could have probably scored against Villa as well when they were down to 10 men. So they've done okay. It's just having that quality at the start. And a lot of people have said, he really improved Swansea when he was there on loan as well. So there's a lot of potential there. At least a lot of people keep talking about the potential this kid's got. But now he's going to have to show it playing week in, week out in a team that aren't going to create a lot of chances for him, you'd imagine. He's going to have to take what he can get. So yeah, for me, it hasn't changed a huge amount, but it just means 3-5-2 is probably a little bit more viable. Not that it wasn't before, but having a play-in striker is good. But you're right. Like just looking at the list now, they've still got McGoldrick, Sharp, McBurney, Muse, who you mentioned, and Muse, by the way, for a little while last year was almost like a world beater at Sheffield United, and he still got taken out. I think he got injured. I can't remember if he got injured during his run.
Yeah, but then he was back to fitness and still not getting games. So that's the problem with Sheffield United and Wilder. He likes to rotate those forwards. No one's safe.
Yeah, and they've got 5 forwards listed in FPL, but obviously Burke is listed as midfield, and he's been playing up front as well. So there's literally 6 strikers that could play. But you'd imagine you don't make a record signing to bench, so he's going to get given a go. And if he does,
the owner, Andy, is in the owner's FPL team, right? So
yes.
Since day one, the owner of Sheffield United has had Brewster in his team, in a Liverpool shirt, albeit. But yeah, he obviously knew that transfer was coming.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of insight you need. We all need to buy a club, and then we'll know who's playing week in, week out. That's the way to probably win FPL. So yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, the owner of Sheffield United's on Twitter, a little bit active, very active in the FPL community. Like he's been on podcasts and stuff, and yeah, he's had Brewster, and I think he had Burke as well. I think he's got Burke in his team too. So he kind of knew what was happening. So yeah, I think it makes it more viable, but it doesn't necessarily make me want to straight away switch to 3-5-2 because, I mean, Werner. We'll talk about Werner in a minute, but look, if he comes good, he could be an option. Vardy's smashing it. People are jumping on Jimenez, Ings, Calvert-Lewin looks like a season keeper at the moment. Might not be like that, of course, but he looks like it. Antonio looks great. We're all just waiting for the fixtures. I mean, that's 7 strikers without even talking about Morpay as well. Chris Wood could do well at times. There's a lot of strikers for a good price. And I still think below kind of 7 million around that price, there are some good midfielders now. I think, like Harvey Barnes has come to the fore a bit now. James Rodriguez, we've got to still see what he can do. But there's a lot of strikers. So that's what's kind of... I'm not going to go and rush out to change my team to fit Brewster in, basically. But for those that went 3-5-2 at the start, some people actually started with Brewster in the hope that he would move. It looks good. So, yeah, I don't think I'm at the stage yet where I want to put Brewster in my team as a regular starter, I think. And I think you're right. We have to kind of, wait and see, basically. So, yeah, that's Brewster covered, I think. I saw some people asking about what to do with Son. So we'll come on to your team first because you've got Son in your team. And you're playing him this week. So you're hopeful he starts?
Yeah, so I've got him in my starting 11 because for me, I think Son either starts or doesn't play at all. Yeah, there's always a chance he'll get 10 minutes and get you 1 point. But look, we just don't know with Mourinho, do we? It could be, is it Mourinho mind games to say that he's fit and is playing? Or is it Mourinho mind games the other way, pretending he's fit when he's actually not? So we just don't know, but I think it's a gamble that I'm willing to take. The United fixture is one that will really suit Spurs because United will have a go. I'd expect space for Son and Kane because Southampton had a lot of the ball and they came at them. So look, Son's too explosive or has been too explosive to leave out. I was tempted to sell him earlier in the week. I saw his price was falling. Fortunately, I paid 8.9 for him. So I'm able to absorb one more price drop and still not lose money. And that was part of my thinking with keeping him. And look, even if he's not fit, come game week 5 and then beyond, he's got a nice little run of fixtures. And I want him for that run. Just looking at the fixtures now, I think he's got West Ham in game week 5, and then he's got Burnley, nice fixture. And then he's got Brighton and West Brom, really nice set of fixtures. So yeah, he's staying for me. And if he doesn't, then, doesn't play, I get Dunn, who might not be first choice now. Tarkowski's back. It's between Dunn and Long for that starting spot at Burnley. Or, worst case scenario, get Ollie Burke, who I think will start for Sheffield United, and he's out of position playing up front.
How much longer will he start for? That's what I'd be worried about that bench. I don't know with Son. I think, it could be mind games. The thing for me, if you've got a good bench, is even if he's not back this week, it sounds very likely that he'll be back for next week. If he's, unless Mourinho is completely lying, I just don't think he is. Then if he's nearly fit or potentially fit or he wants to play this week, then for game week 5 he's going to have a 2-week rest. He can get up to fitness. And like you said, the fixtures are ridiculous for Spurs. So I don't think he's necessarily the worst hold at all. But obviously, I personally, as Man United away, there wasn't necessarily a huge amount of points in that game. I know Man United haven't been good, but it's the type of game that could be quite tight and difficult for someone like Son, and for the Man United players as well. So I don't think it's the worst hold. How are you feeling about your team in general? Obviously, we already discussed on the team selection. It was quite a low score last week, as it was for a lot of people, to be fair. It was a pretty awful week all round, unless you had Jamie Vardy. So how are you feeling going into this week?
Yeah, look, part of my thinking with the wild card and going big on City, short term, albeit with the triple up, was this Leeds fixture. So I'm really hopeful this is going to be a goals fest. I've looked at Leeds quite closely. They are a lot of chances against them. We look back to that Liverpool game in game week 1. They had a go at Liverpool and they'll have a go at City. It's the Bielsa way, and that will play hopefully into City's hands. It will be attack and attack, and I just hope that becomes a goal fest. And if it does, then I'll have a good game week. If it doesn't, then all my eggs are in one basket because I've got triple City, but essentially it's quadruple City because my captain's at City as well. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to just very quickly justify Liverpool. The plan is to get Salah for Sterling in game week 6, just before the comments come in. Why has he not got Liverpool? And yeah, I appreciate that's very high risk, but I'm willing to take it so I can own Sterling and the KDB double up, which is a differential in itself. I think Sterling and KDB are only owned by like 5 or 6% of the game. Add Foden into the mix, now the triple up is probably owned by fewer than 1% of the game. So that's a differential that I need because I've had a bad start to the season. So high risk, high reward. I've also got Jimenez and Werner, who I'm hoping produce. Werner is on his last chance. And then, at the back, Reece James has to get a clean sheet sooner or later, and Roman size 2. So yeah, I'm quite happy with my team this week, and I'm not too worried about Liverpool as I have been in the past without going with Liverpool. I think Villa are much improved. I think without Mane they'll be a little bit weaker. There's an argument to say Salah's better without Mane, but I do think without Mane, Villa have got a better chance of getting a result there. So that's going to be a really interesting game. I've been really impressed by Villa and their transfer business.
Yeah, I think the one kind of benefit for Liverpool is they have strengthened on that Mane replacement. So they've got Jota in there now. And not to say that Shaqiri was a bad player, but I think Jota is maybe kind of a step up there, which is good. What do you think of this whole Salah plays better when Mane's in? Because I'm in kind of two trains of thought. Like, I know someone did tweet me with a really good thread about why it's not. It is just a thing, but part of me just thinks a lot of the time is because a player gets rested in an easier fixture, so therefore that player is also playing in an easier fixture, so maybe that's why they score. And obviously Salah's a great player as well. We sometimes forget that. But also, maybe there is something psychological about it, that Mane's out, he knows he is then the main threat. Obviously Jota's come in, he's still a good player, he's already off the mark within 10 minutes. But Salah is now the main goal threat. Do you think there's something in that, or do you think it's just small sample sizes and can happen to anyone?
Yeah, I mean, the stats don't lie that Salah does do well when Mane's out. But at the same time, I think Liverpool probably, I've not looked at this, but I'd expect Liverpool's win percentage to probably drop a little bit when Mane's out. So yes, it might make Salah better, but it might make Liverpool weaker. And then, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But at the same time, I'm thinking if I'm playing in that Liverpool midfield and I don't know, Wijnaldum, Keita and Fabinho, and I'm looking left and right each match day, and I've got Mane to my left and Salah to my right, and it's a 50-50 pass each time, both of them are going to get equal amount of love, right? If Mane's not in the team and you've got Jota or in the past Origi or Shaqiri there, and you've got Salah on your right, 90% of your balls are going to Salah. So it probably just favours Salah when Mane's out the team, because the rest of the team look to Salah for he's going to be the talisman today. Whilst previously they've got talisman in both those guys. So as you say, with Jota coming in the team, it will strengthen Liverpool. But at the same time, everyone still will look for Salah. And we saw in the week when Jota came on, Salah took a ball off him as Jota was about to shoot. Salah probably wouldn't have done that to Mane, but it will feel like he can still do that to Jota. He is the main man. He is the big fish.
I've watched that back a few times as a Salah, and I think if Jota wasn't in the way, I reckon Salah could have had a shot off there and got a goal. So I'm not happy with Jota, but that's probably biased owner syndrome. Before we come on to my team, just want to quickly ask you about the Villa defence. Do you think at this point we've seen enough games from them to say that their defence is well improved and they are now a tough team to play against? Bearing in mind as well, this is Liverpool they're up against. What do you think?
Yeah. I think we've seen enough games because I include the Project Restart form, and they were brilliant after post restart, post lockdown. And yeah, we've only got a very small sample this season, but you look at their recruitment. Martinez in goal, made second most saves out of any other keeper post lockdown. Yes, he was at Arsenal then. Cash coming in at right back. Konza's now playing centre back with Mings. It looks a lot more solid. And then, McGinn is back in the midfield, which will help. He does really well alongside Louise. I think Barkley will add a lot to that team eventually, not defensively, but will make Villa better. So I just think their recruitment all over has been great. And I think defensively, they're much better. And I saw an article on Scout in the week. I think David perhaps wrote it. Something like they were conceding 16 shots against them a game. Last season on average. This season they're conceding 10 shots on average against them. And yes, it's a small sample size, and yes, one of those games was 10 men Sheffield United, but they have looked better. And I've got Martinez in goal, and whilst I expect Liverpool to score, of course, I do think there'll be save points, and I do think there'll be saves against Villa, but a lot of those will be kind of outside the box, not big chances, because they just look so much better at the back. And John Terry is there, and he's had his time now with Konza and Mings, and I expect them to, start learning a lot from John Terry, who was, one of the best in the business.
Yeah, I've got some. So if you want to check out any of the stats and stuff, obviously for this week you've still got an hour to the deadline, but for future weeks and stuff as well, obviously you can sign up to be a Fantasy Football Scout member. There is a link in the description below. So I've got some Villa stats. Now these are, I'll come on to my team because I'm still captain in Salah, right? So it's interesting for me. Now these are off the top of my head, and I wrote about them last year, and I have looked them up this year. They might not be completely accurate, but they're very close. So last year, game week 1 to 29, using that because that was pre-lockdown, I think they conceded something like on average 15 shots in the box, right, a game. Wow. And then from game week 30 to 38, it was 5. So that was a really big reduction. And then this season, I've looked at expected goals conceded. So again, from game week 1 to 29 last year, it was over 2 expected goals a game, which is awful, right? That's really not good if you want to try and stay up in the Premier League. From game week 30 to 38, and including their first 2 games this season, it's just over 1. So they've halved that, which is pretty incredible, and we're coming up to like 11 or 12 games now where that's happened. So it does look like maybe they have improved to the point where they're actually not a bad defence anymore. Like this season, I know people are targeting Leeds. Like I think you have to kind of forget the Liverpool game that Leeds played because everyone does bad against Liverpool. So actually, Leeds and Villa have actually played the same 2 sides in game week 2 and 3. They've both played Fulham and Sheffield United. And open play XG conceded was 1.7 for Leeds and 0.7 for Villa. But you have to remember that Villa played Sheffield United with 10 men for nearly the whole game. So it's very close. But the defence has improved. The reason I'm captain in Salah is, as good as Villa's defence is, Liverpool are very good when it comes to attacking. Like you may have seen that when you've watched their games. And if I had Sterling, so you're on captain Sterling, I like that. If I had Sterling, I think it'd be a bit of a closer call. I don't know. There's something about me that doesn't want to captain De Bruyne still. And so I'm going for Salah captain. And so I'm basically back in the Liverpool attack instead of back in the Villa defence, which I think a lot of people are back in the defence. But I'll let you know what my 2 transfers were this week. So Werner's out. I don't know if I'm happy about it. I kind of chased price rises a bit, but I also chased them so late. I've not actually benefited from any of them so far. But I did Werner to Jimenez, which let me do St. Maximin to Foden. And that also let me bench Luke Shaw, because obviously Man United have not been looking great. Although I do think if Son's out, there's a good chance of a clean sheet this week, but we'll see. So what do you think of that? Werner and St. Maximin out, Jimenez and Foden in.
Yeah, I mean, you transferred Werner out because you know Jimenez, that fixture and their fixture run is brilliant. So look, if I didn't own Jimenez, I probably would have made the same move, but I had Werner and Jimenez, so I didn't feel the need. But yeah, I mean, you've given Werner time. I do think he'll come good, but look, he's an expensive asset when others are firing to be waiting for them to come good. Maybe he's one you revisit later. And then in midfield, look, St. Maximin, they're playing in a 4-4-2. He's always getting injured, whilst he'll probably be fit this week. You just never know. Newcastle aren't scoring goals. I think we all probably many of us made the mistake. I started the season with St. Maximin as well. And in a 4-4-2, he's just not as threatening. But Foden, Andy, did you go Foden because you knew you weren't going to captain KDB and it just sort of helped add to your City numbers should City do well?
To be completely honest, the reason I went for Foden is because I couldn't afford Harvey Barnes. He was the one I really wanted. He's actually gone up again now in price overnight. He's now 7.1. He's the one I just think he's looked really good. I think his numbers are always good. He just needs to improve that finishing a bit. and he will be incredible. And the fixtures coming up for Leicester are really good. I just couldn't afford it, and I just didn't want to write City off after that game last week where, they still put 2 goals past Leicester. It just happens that they also conceded 5, but it's a pretty freak result. And now they've got Leeds away. Arsenal at home I still think is a really good fixture, and I think it's West Ham away after that as well. So the next 3 are pretty good. I'll be honest, I'm not completely happy with Foden because I'm not one of those managers that likes rotation risks, and he is, right? And especially when Jesus and Aguero come back. The only good thing for him is this week he's probably going to play because he got rested. And in game week 5, he's not going to play over the international break because he's not in the England squad. So that's quite a good indicator that he'll probably get good minutes over the next 2 game weeks. And then I'll be honest, I might even then look at moving him on that quickly. He'll just annoy me when he doesn't start, and I know that's going to happen. But I do think, if he plays in that team and gets good minutes, he's going to get points just like anyone in the Man City attack. And for 6.6, which I think is what I bought him at, that is a bargain. So I want to at least give him a go, and if it does come down to it, the one thing for my team, which long term I'll have to think about, is I've got quite a bit of money wrapped up in defence. So I've got Luke Shaw on my bench. Really, that should be a 4.5. I've got Luca Dean, who without Allen and Liverpool next week, I'm a little bit worried about. He's 6 million. He could easily be a 5. He could be a Reece James, for example.
Yeah, or Coleman, even if you wanted to.
Yeah. So straight away, that's 1.5.
Triple up, Andy. Everton triple up's been good for you, but knowing that Brighton have looked quite decent, and then they've got Liverpool after. You'll have the Everton triple up presumably for the Liverpool fixture as well. So, what are your thoughts with Everton moving forward?
Yeah, I wasn't worried about it until Alan, Richarlison and Gomez were all injured in the same bloody week. That is how you just can't foresee that. The Liverpool game is obviously frustrating, but I think I always think you can't have the perfect team every week. So I would be looking at it as I've got Brighton at home, Southampton away, and Newcastle away in the next 4. And they've got to play Liverpool. So it's not going to look good next week, especially when I've also got Adams and McCarthy against Chelsea. So I am a little bit worried with my Jimenez and Foden move because I've locked off cash now. So I don't have any way to upgrade Adams. I've only got 0.1 in the bank. So I'd have to go to Mitrovic, and I'm not really interested in doing that. Next week could be another hit. I've already taken 2 in 3 weeks. So I don't know. I think I'm pretty happy with the team. Everton triple up doesn't look as good now. I think it's simple to say. Allen was such a big key of why they've done so well, especially defensively. And to be fair, they've not even kept a clean sheet in the last 2 anyway. I'm not really worried about Brighton. I know they've looked quite good, but I think Everton have also been very good as well. So I'm not too worried about that fixture. But next week it's going to look a bit different. But look, if Allen and Gomez and Richarlison are all back for that Liverpool game, who's to say they can't give them a game? It could happen. They're a much improved side. Calvert-Lewin's going to be a handful, even for Van Dijk. I'm not completely happy with it, but it's done me well up to here. It could do me well again this week, and it could do well after. I think I've got my wild card in hand as well, so I could use that at some point. I think one of the things that you said about Werner, I could definitely see myself going back there or to Pulisic because he's now back in the squad as well. So he could be an option soon. 8.3 million is such a bargain. Yeah. And Antonio's 6.3 as well. So I'm already spotting these players I know I'm going to want in the future. And I think game week 10, I'm not saying I'll definitely use my wildcard there because I'm kind of just winging it at the moment. But game week 10 is a bit of a fixture swing for both Wolves and Everton. And so right now I've got 5 players from those teams. So that might be a time that I switch completely off. But I think my defence, Shaw down to a 4.5 and Luca Dean to someone cheaper, that's a good way to unlock some money. I could even do Rodriguez, for example, up to Pulisic. I'd only need 0.7 to do that, or 0.8. So it's not too bad to find that kind of money. But I think this week it looks great. What I really want is a 70 to 80 point week. And then next week, maybe I spend some of those points to to rethink again. So we'll finish off with I'm just looking in the chat now, see if there's any major. People keep asking about Podence. I keep seeing that in the chat. We don't have any more news. All we know is from what we said on Team News yesterday that he's going to be. I think he's going to be assessed. I don't think he said he was going to need a fitness test, but him and Marçal, they'd have to keep looking at. They had some problems. They were going to look at him. He might start. He might not. For me, I don't know if you agree. If I had Podence, I would start him. I feel like he's not going to necessarily come on for a cameo, and the upside for Fulham is so good, right?
Yeah, all day long. You start Podence if he's in your team. He'll be fit or not. Going into the international break will help Nuno's thinking. Been called up to the Portuguese squad as well, which is cool for him. He'll want to impress. against Fulham, and that's going to be a so open game. It's Fulham. Like, you have to take the risk there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be bringing him in, but yeah, if you've got him, you definitely play. I'll actually one more question before we quickly look at the goals imminent table before we finish off. A few people asking about Jimenez captain. I'll give my opinion really quickly. I just don't ever feel like he's going to get a big enough haul. I know he can get double digits. He can score 2 goals. It doesn't happen that often. If Wolves go 1-0 up, if Wolves go 1-0 up, there's every chance they might just sit back and just play out for that, you know? Maybe go for a second, whether it's Jimenez or not involved, who knows? That's kind of my thinking. What do you reckon about him? Great fixture, of course.
I knew you were going to say it, Andy, and I mimic those thoughts. I mean, lower ceiling is what I always think with Jimenez. Lower ceiling than a KDB, a Salah, or a Sterling. And if you'll probably have one of those 3 players. I'd say they're all better shouts than Jimenez, just because double-digit hauls with Jimenez are a thing we don't often see. Yeah, you're never surprised if you see a brace or a hat-trick from one of the 3 I just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's a bad choice this week. I think it's a great fixture. Like, if you target in fixtures, him and Ings this week are brilliant options outside of the Liverpool Man City boys. But that's why I'm not doing it. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't if you want to go for it. Let's finish off on the goals imminent table. So there's some pretty big names on here again. Obviously, this is where you've had a good few amount of shots and haven't basically got enough goals for the amount of shots they've had. So this is available in the members area again. Link in the description below. So Werner's still on there. You confident with him?
Yeah, I mean, he hit the bar last time out, didn't he? I don't think the Palace fixture is going to suit Werner, which I'm slightly concerned about. It will be similar to West Brom. They'll be deep. Everyone will be in front of them. Werner likes to get in behind and there won't be much space. Saying that, he's a class act and a brilliant finisher. If he gets chances, surely he will start tucking them away.
Yeah, he's going to come good at some point. It's just a question of how long do you wait. It could be this week, it could be next week, it could be a few weeks down the line. I mean, once Chelsea have got everyone back fit, I'm kind of going to be all over them, I think. It's just a little bit of a worry about how long that's going to take. Obviously, Pulisic's going to be back in the squad. Ziyech still isn't, so let's see what happens there. Harry Kane, by the way, 12 shots already, 10 of them in the box. He's had 2.44 expected goals. I think he's only scored once. I think he looks good, 10.5 million. He's got a lot of returns already.
Fresh off a hat-trick in the week as well. My problem is the fixture congestion, and Kane will play a lot of minutes, and will he always be fresh for the Premier League? Also, if I was gambling on Kane, I'd want to know Son was fit, because Kane does better with Son in the team, because it's more ammunition going forward, and Bale is, of course, not ready. But when they've got that front 3 of Bale, Son and Kane, you want one of them, I think, because they'll score loads of goals with those 3. But until we know more about Son, I probably wouldn't gamble on a Kane. If you've got him, of course, you hold him. And he scores against big teams, Kane. And obviously United is a fixture he's done well in the past. So, yeah, 10.5. It's the cheapest we've seen Kane for a few seasons, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be interesting at some point. I'm the same. It's just too difficult to go to when you've backed yourself in midfield. But at one point, I might switch there if he keeps this up. Richarlison's on the list as well. I mean, he has looked good for goals and probably should have scored not as many as Calvert-Lewin, but he should have a couple more than he's had.
On pens.
Yeah, exactly. A few people asking in the chat whether he's going to start. Same situation. Basically, I think Gomez and Allen are out. Richarlison's got a chance, but he has to have a fitness test today, so you're not going to find out before the deadline. I think similar situation to Podence. If you've got him, you probably keep him. If you don't buy him. I think I would probably keep him. I'll just quickly go through some other players. So Harvey Barnes is on there, who I've mentioned already. Honestly, his goal scoring numbers, his expected data, is always good. I think his expected goals, I can't remember if it was XGI or just XG, is something like 0.5 per 90 minutes, which I'll tell you now is very, very good. That's the same as Calvert-Lewin, same as Ings last year, better than Jimenez. He's just not as good a finisher. Once he can improve that, he's going to be incredible value. Souček and Antonio are on here. I think we're going to talk about these two all the time until the fixture's clear. They're still looking like really good options, even with the fixtures they got. And Trossard, even though he's hitting so many shots off target, is still on here because he's having so many shots. A ridiculous amount of times he hit the woodwork against Man United. And he looks like a great option as well. Maybe not for this week, potentially. Could be okay against Everton. But I think in Gameweek 6 he starts off with West Brom at home, so 6 million. You liking the look of him?
Yeah, if I'd sold Son this week, I mentioned to you in the week, Andy, my buy was likely to be Trossard. I really like him. He's playing really high up the pitch. He's playing minutes. He's getting 90. He wasn't last season. This is a guy that gets in the Belgium squad. Like, he's a class act. And at 6 million, I think it could be an absolute steal. So one I'm keeping a very close eye on. The problem is do you want double Brighton? And many of us have already got Lamptey. I I think I'm happy with double Brighton if they keep playing as they are, which they're looking good.
Yeah, I think if it's double, if it's a double like one defender, one attacker, that's okay. If it was more Pay and Trossard, I'd probably want to maybe pick between them. Went away to them, but when he came on because he didn't start the game, he was extremely good, and he's looked at this year. The only issue with him and Morpay is always rotation, but at the moment Potter's not really changing things around. Maybe that'll change in the future, but. Yeah, he's looking good. All right, cool. I think we will leave it there. I think we've covered most of the questions that have been going on in the chat, at least the big questions. So, yeah, just have a really quick look. There's your team. I'll put it up on screen again. Hopefully you get a massive green arrow. Not quite as big as my green arrow, though, I'm hoping.
I'm due one, mate. I'm due one. And guys, if you're watching now and you're around at 12:30, join me for Scoutcast Match Day. I'll be watching the Chelsea Palace game. So it'll be a 2-hour show. We'll be answering all your questions and watching the football. So TV on, put it on mute, listen to us. Look forward to seeing you hopefully in a couple of hours.
Yeah, so that'll be starting at 12:25 ahead of the 12:30 kickoff. So just make sure you check that out. Really quick look at my team before we go. I'm hoping Salah captain comes good. I must get a goal from Che Adams before I sell him, because the problem is if I don't, he's going to go down in price again. I don't have any money to upgrade him. So that's a little bit of a worry, but we'll see how it goes. For everyone watching, thanks very much. Hit that like button if you've enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't already. And hit that notification bell so you know when match day and everything else next week is going live. And of course, if you want to check out all the members area, some of the stats that we've been talking about, there is a link in the description below. Otherwise, we wish you well for Game Week 4. And thanks a lot, Gianni. I will catch you all soon.
See you guys.